Number 12, Technomancy. Let's start off the list with a type of wizard who gets a broadband connection and decides that wands are so last century. Technomancy is the weird middle child of the Marvel Universe that happens when a laptop and a spellbook love each other very much. It's a highly specialized, strange way of doing things that mix mystical energy with science. You might think tech and magic are like oil and water, but technomancers treat circuitry and digital networks like a special type of magical wire. They blend spells with machines to change how technology works. This lets them put enchantments into metal or use computer math to cast spells. It is basically a modern way to play with magic, where you can boss around synthetic stuff just as easily as a normal witch boss is around a forest. This is not something you see every day, and only a few smart, weird people use it. One of them is Forge, one of the most underrated mutants I've seen, whose brain is basically a blueprint machine, and he mixes that with his Cheyenne shaman history, which I think is super cool. If you like Forge, we're officially best friends. Then you have Madison Jeffries, and of course, Dr. Doom. Doom might be the best Technomancy user here because the guy who decided that Latvian robot tech and dark magic were the perfect combo. And he's not wrong. With Technomancy, these guys can pull demons out of a computer screen, make power armor that can survive a blast from a cosmic god, or give a toaster a soul. The biggest and most obvious flex of this magic is how the robot bounty hunter Death's Head came to be. In the book, Death's Head, the body in question number 1, we see a place called Strakos. This is a tiny dimension where wires and wizards are always fighting. Then a dark mage named Tyrajuka Lupex had a big problem because his magic was too strong for his human body. It was so bad that he was burning through people like cheap batteries and needed a body that would not melt. That's why he used top-tier technomancy to build a body out of living metal and high-end robotics. He glued together cyber matter and magic spells to make a shell that could hold his scary soul. But right before he could jump in, his ex-girlfriend Pyra showed up to ruin everything like all exes do. She used her own mix of science and magic to give the robot its own brain, and that's how the robot woke up as Death's Head, with super strength and a magically tough metal body. For me, this really shows that if you have enough magic, you don't need a software update. Hopefully, he doesn't have to deal with a blue screen of death during a boss fight. Number 11, Atlantean magic. If you thought being stuck at the bottom of the ocean was just for fishes and sunken treasure like SpongeBob, you haven't seen the blue-skinned magicians of Atlantean magic. I'm honestly very intrigued because this is one of the oldest kinds of magic on Earth, coming from the legendary city of Atlantis. Way before people were building skyscrapers, Atlantis was already doing crazy things with spells and gadgets. This magic is all about water, ancient gods like Poseidon or Valka, and using shiny magical items. What makes this different from most of other types of magic is that it does not look for power in other dimensions. Instead, it uses the natural energy lines in the earth that are stuck in the oceans and royal blood of the kings. The people who run the show in Atlantis are the ones who use this, like King Kamu or Queen Zarta. Even Namor uses it, and it sometimes is when he grabs the trident of Neptune. And that's not crazy enough. Even Dr. Doom, who's basically the nosy neighbor of the Marvel world, has tried to steal their secrets. What's interesting is that people who know this magic can talk to whales, move the ocean however they want, and use the heavy pressure of the deep sea to squash their enemies. But the most insane thing they ever did with this magic is mentioned in Incredible Hercules number 123. In an earlier age, the Council of Sorcerers got greedy and tried to use a cosmic power source called the Axis Mundi to beat the Amazonians. But instead of winning, they accidentally triggered a disaster called the Great Cataclysm that started dragging the city into the deep. As the water rushed in and everyone was facing a watery grave, the wizards realized they had to act fast to save their people. That's when they cast one massive final spell that completely rewrote the biology of every survivor in the city. It turned them into a new species called Homo myrminus. That's how the wizards gave them gills, blue skin, and the strength to live in the freezing, heavy water at the bottom of the sea. It is one of the biggest group makeovers in history, and kind of proves that a little bit of magic is better than a swimming lesson. It's a pretty potent type of magic, but we don't see much of it to make the top 10. Number 10, Witchcraft. Being a nanny's already a tough job, but it gets much harder when you have to fight off a group of supervillains with nothing but a rocking chair and some witchcraft. This is a very old school earth based magic that likes to play with nature and local spirits. It's not about blown up galaxies, it's about rituals, potions, and little charms. In witchcraft, witches talk to old gods like Gaia or Hecate and focus on things like balance and changing the luck of the people around them. I would say this is pretty special because it's the kind of magic that gets passed down through families, focusing on the ground under your feet. You can find this being used by covens all over the world, especially the famous ones in Salem. Agatha Harkness is the big name here, and she is so old she actually remembers the time when she and Duke Dennis were chilling in Atlantis when it was still above water. But there are others like Wiccan and the Scarlet Witch who used this before she started breaking reality with her mind. Here's what I like about witchcraft. Witches are great at making people see things that aren't there, messing with brains and making the trees outside your window try to grab you. A great example of why you shouldn't mess with a witch is in Fantastic Four number 94. This is when the Frightful Four, a group of bad guys with names like the Wizard and Sandman, decided to rob the Fantastic Four's house. They wanted to kidnap the baby, Franklin Richards, but they ran into Agatha Harkness, who was just the nanny. These villains thought they were so cool with their gadgets and powers, and they figured an old lady would be an easy target. But Agatha did not even get up from her chair to win. She used pure witchcraft to take the whole team apart. She then made the shadows in the room move, turned the house into a nightmare of illusions, and brought in some scary spirits to freak them out. But honestly, my favorite part is when she turned the Sandman into a statue of pure fear. It's a good thing she didn't decide to turn them into actual toads, because that would be a nightmare to clean up. But the best part is, this was actually Agatha's first appearance, and it wasn't even her greatest magical feat. Yet she showed how terrifying witchcraft is. In my opinion, though, it's still base level compared to the big leagues. Number 9, Voodoo. If you like your magic with a side of ghosts and a very thin line between being alive and being a snack, Voodoo is the one for you. This is a very strong style of magic that mixed traditions from West Africa and the Caribbean, and it is almost entirely about the door between the living and the dead. People who use voodoo talk to spirits called the Loa, like Legba and Esku. It involves a lot of drums, chanting, and cymbals, which is why I say it's very hands-on and is great for moving souls around or talking to your great-grandpa just for him to roast your cooking skills. The most famous person doing this is Jericho Drum, also known as Brother Voodoo. This guy's so good at his job that he even became the Sorcerer Supreme for a while. But his lore doesn't just stop there, because his brother Daniel is a ghost who helps him out, which is a pretty good deal for a sibling. Then you have Marie Laveau and the Black Talon adding more sorcerers to the voodoo lineup. With this magic, these folks can jump into other people's bodies, get super strength from spirits, and make charms. But the thing everyone knows them for is making zombies and bossing around the dead. Things got really dark in the story in Doctor Strange Sorcerer Supreme number 20. Back in 1642, a mean pirate named Bote Fu went to run Haiti. So he hired a dark voodoo doctor named Shango to make him an army that didn't need to eat or sleep. But Shango didn't just talk to normal spirits. He went straight to the god of death, Sagbata. He made a deal and used a nasty spell from an old book called the Darkhold, which, if you've been on this channel long enough, I'm pretty sure you know. Shango used this ritual on a guy named Alexandre, tying his soul back to his rotting body. This was the very first real zombie. Then he did it to hundreds of other bodies and sent a whole army of them across the island. It's the weirdest way to save money on payroll, as long as you don't mind the smell of your employees. Number 8, blood magic. Some people use wands, but the people into blood magic prefer to use a bandage because this magic runs on life force. This is a very raw and fast way to cast spells, so you don't need to say a bunch of long words or ask a space god for a favor, you just use blood. And since blood is full of life and soul energy, these spells happen almost instantly and are very hard to block. The downside is that it hurts a lot and you have to keep hurting yourself or others to keep the magic going. Vampires use a little bit of this naturally, but people who actually study it are rare because it's so taxing on the body. except maybe airport workers because they seem like they have high blood pressure. Amongst many blood magic users, Nico Minro from the Runaways is the star here. She has a thing called the Staff of One that only comes out when she bleeds. She can make big explosions or move the elements, but she usually looks like they need a long nap and some iron supplements afterwards. The most intense use of this happened in Avengers Arena number 10 to 12. A bunch of teen heroes were trapped in a game where they had to fight to the death. Here, Nico was attacked by a girl named Apex, who was controlling Darkhawk. Nico got her arm cut off and was dying in the snow. Usually, she asked to say a word to make her staff work, but she was too weak to even talk, and as she was dying, all that spilled blood acted like a giant battery for her magic. The Staff of One used her life force to break the rules of being dead and brought her back to life. She then came back stronger and even got a cool new magical arm. I guess if you're willing to bleed for it, you can actually tell death to go away. And different from Voodoo, which only resurrects people as zombies, you still stay true to yourself, which makes this magic a strong contender on this list. If you ask me, I'd rather spill a bit of blood to revive myself than be saved in the hospital just to die again after seeing the bills. Number 7, Demonology. Dealing with demons is usually a bad idea, but in Demonology, it's just another Tuesday at the office. This is the type of magic that I strongly considered putting a bit higher up, and you'll understand why in a minute. First thing to note, this magic is very dangerous because it comes straight from Hell Lords and dark dimensions. You aren't asking the earth for help here, you are grabbing a demon by the neck and telling it what to do, or vice versa if you're unlucky. I personally wouldn't recommend this type of magic because you have to know everything about blood pacts and, most importantly, the true names of these monsters. If you mess up even one word, you're going to have a very bad time in a place that's way too hot and has Jeffrey Epstein in it. Mostly, the people who use this are already a bit dark or just really desperate. You have Ilyana Rasputina, who actually runs a place in hell called Limbo, and Daimon Hellstrom, who is literally the son of Satan. Daimon uses this to throw hellfire around and travel through scary dimensions with his special trident. That's why demonologists use old books and a lot of willpower to make sure the creatures they call up don't eat them before the job is done. The coolest moment for this magic happened in Hellstorm, Prince of Lies number 16. Daimon was tired of his dad, Marduk Kurios, being a jerk and ruling hell. So he went down there to settle things, but Daimon knew he couldn't just win a magic fight because his dad was basically a god in his own house. His dad had way more raw power than he did. Instead of trying to outblast him, Daimon used the most important rule of demonology. He found out his father's secret true name. In this world, if you know the demon's real name, you own them. By saying Marduk Kurios, Daimon broke his father's powers and ended him right there. Then he took over the throne himself. It just goes to show that knowing a secret is sometimes better than being able to throw a fireball. Just don't expect a Father's Day card after you've pulled a move like that. Number 6, Necromancy. We're now getting closer to the peak level of magic because while there are some people playing death with zombies, the masters of necromancy are busy running the entire department of death. This is the big league magic for anything that involves the afterlife and the souls of the dead. It's not just about making a corpse walk around, it's about controlling the very structure of the underworld. These casters can pull souls out of heaven or hell, rot things with a touch, and make whole armies of skeletons. It is the magic of decay and making sure things stay dead or come back exactly how you want them. Because this is so high level, you usually see gods or really powerful dark wizards using it. That's why Hela, the Asgardian goddess of death, is the queen of this. For her, it's not just a hobby, it's her whole job. Not only her, Pluto from the Greek myths and Morgan Le Fay also use it. What I love the most about this magic is that they don't just borrow power from the dead. They're the ones who make the rules for everyone who has stopped breathing. The scale of this got really crazy in Thor number 362. In this storyline, Thor and his buddies went into the land of the dead to save some human souls that Hela had taken. As they were trying to leave, Hela got really mad and decided to show them why she is the boss. But my favorite part is that she didn't just send a few guards. She used her magic to wake up every dead thing in her kingdom. She brought back a giant ship made of dead people's fingernails and an endless wave of undead Asgardian warriors called Dragur. To put it simply, she made a sea of rotting soldiers to stop Thor. It was a massive display that showed she can turn the entire afterlife into a weapon whenever she wants. It really makes you realize that being dead in the Marvel world doesn't mean you get to stop working, because apparently there's no such thing as a retirement plan when a death goddess is your boss. As amazing as Necromancy is, though, it'd be a crime if we put it above this next one. Number 5, Chronomancy. Now we go to the top 5, where we stop talking about resurrection and more altering reality. Chronomancy is the magic of time, and it is incredibly dangerous. Honestly, it's probably my favorite, which is exactly why I'm very excited to tell you about this. Chronomancy is not like using the time machine made of gears and buttons. This is about using your mind to bend the actual fabric of time. A chronomancer could step outside of the normal flow, see the past and future at the same time, making people old or young, or just jump into a different century. But here's the thing. Because messing with time can break the whole universe, not many people try it. Some magicians use it a little bit to freeze things, but the real pro was a guy named Cece Neg from the future. This guy spent his whole life studying time because he wanted to go back and fix the entire universe to make it look exactly how he wanted. In Marvel Premiere number 14, Cece Neg did something that would make a normal brain melt. That's because he started traveling backward through history. He went from the 31st century to the time of King Arthur, and then even further back. Every time he jumped, he sucked up all the magic energy that existed in that time period. He even kicked a giant tentacle monster named Shuma Gorath out of the way like it was nothing. He eventually made it all the way back to the very start of the universe right before the Big Bang. At that point, he had all the magic and history inside him and was basically God. Here's where I think it gets interesting. He had to decide if he wanted to make a new universe or keep the old one. He ended up putting everything back the way it was, which is a lot of work just to change nothing. You'd think with all that power, he would at least have made it so that traffic jams didn't exist anymore. Now, you might be thinking, this is too OP. Why is it only number 5? Well, that's because not everyone is Cece Neg. He became a god because he sucked up all the magic throughout history. If it was just an average magician who tried to go back in time, he probably wouldn't even made it past the 1900s because he would have missed seeing Michael Jackson live. Number 4, Asgardian magic. If you want magic that can literally hold the stars together, you look at Asgardian magic. This is a divine kind of power that is part of the 10 realms and the giant space tree Yggdrasil. It uses ancient ruins, enchantments, and a special energy called the Odin Force. It is very old and mythic, and it's tied to the blood of the Norse gods and special metals like Uru. This magic can build hammers that never break and change how physics works across different worlds. What's so special about Asgardian magic is that only the gods and wizards of Asgard really get to play with this. That's why Odin is the top guy, and he's the one who puts the whoever is worthy spell on Thor's hammer. Loki uses it for his tricks and shapeshifting, and there's also the Enchantress and the Norn Queen. Even Thor, who usually just hits things with a hammer, has this magic inside him because he is part of the World Tree system. We saw how big this magic can get in the War of the Realms storyline. A bad elf named Malekith had trashed all the 10 realms. To fix it, Thor had to stop being just a guy with a hammer and become the Allfather. That's when he went to the sun, sacrificed his eye, and threw what was left of his hammer into the space tree. This let him use the highest level of rune magic. From there, he got all the wisdom in the world and the power of his father. He didn't just beat the bad guy, he used the magic to rebuild the entire world tree. He literally fixed all 10 dimensions at the exact same time with one big burst of energy. It showed that Asgardian magic is basically the glue that keeps reality from falling apart, which is exactly why I think it deserves the number 4 spot. Number 3, Eldritch magic. Moving on to the top 3, we have Eldritch magic, which is what you get when you go to the best magic school in the multiverse and actually pay attention. This is the main kind of magic that the Sorcerer Supreme uses. It works by borrowing energy from other dimensions and talking to big godlike beings called the Vishanti. This part is very important because you don't just use your own energy, you act like a straw that sucks power from much bigger sources. What makes me respect it so much is that it takes years of studying and sitting still to learn how to do this without your brain exploding. This is the exact system used by the masters of the mystic arts. Doctor Strange is the king on this earth, but his teacher is the Ancient One, and his wife Clea are also pros. They use it to make those glowing orange shields, tie people up with red bands, and send their ghost forms flying around. It's the most flexible and useful high-tier magic because it can do a little bit of everything. What I think is the coolest thing Doctor Strange ever did was in Doctor Strange number 13 when he fought someone even stronger than Odin, Galactus. Galactus is a giant space guy who eats planets, and he was stuck in a magic dimension where he was eating magical worlds. This bad boy is a force of nature, so you can't just punch him or use a simple spell. That's why Strange had to use every trick in the book. He grabbed a bunch of magical items and pulled energy from all his big space god bosses at once. He made a spell so strong that it actually tied up Galactus and held him still. That's like a human being tying up a hurricane with a piece of string. While this doesn't automatically defeat him, this goes to show that Eldritch magic is top level, which is why it deserves the top 3. Number 2, Order Magic. Order Magic is the cosmic version of a very strict librarian who makes sure every book is in the right place. This is a massive force that runs the rules of the whole multiverse. It is the opposite of chaos magic, and instead of breaking laws, it makes them. What makes this magic so special is that it's responsible for things like gravity, logic, and making sure cause and effect actually happen. It is basically the blueprint of how everything is supposed to work. When it's used, it stops weird stuff from happening and keeps the universe's hierarchy in check. That's why mortal wizards can't really touch this stuff because it's way too big. It's mostly for cosmic beings like Master Order, who is basically a giant floating head that represents balance. There's also the in-betweener who sits between order and chaos, hence the name. Sometimes the Sorcerer Supreme uses a tiny bit of it to kick out of a demon, but the real power is being held that doesn't even live in normal time. The most terrifying display of this happened in Ultimates 2, number 2. After the multiverse was reborn, the rules were all messed up. Master Order and Lord Chaos realized that the Living Tribunal, who is usually the big judge of everything, wasn't as powerful as he used to be. That's when they decided the universe needed a new set of rules and did something nobody thought was possible. They used their cosmic magic to actually kill the Living Tribunal. To make things even crazier, Master Order then forced himself to merge with Lord Chaos and the In-Betweener to make a new being called Logos. This new guy completely changed the rules of the whole multiverse. The reason I'm putting this at number 2 is because order magic isn't just about following rules, it's about being the one who writes them. Asgardian magic is strong, but order magic literally has control over reality's rules themselves. The only type of magic capable of opposing order magic is, of course, chaos magic. Number 1, chaos magic. Finally, we have chaos magic, which is basically the I win button in the Marvel Universe. This is by far the most feared and unpredictable power there is. It comes from an old mean god named Chthon, and it doesn't care about the laws of physics or logic. Most magic changes energy that's already there, but chaos magic lets you just rewrite reality however you want. It's so crazy that for a long time, Doctor Strange didn't even believe it was real. The main guy behind this was Chthon, but the person who actually uses it most is Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch. She was picked by the Dark God when she was a baby to be his favorite battery. At first, she just made bad things happen to people by accident. But eventually, she got so good at it that her thoughts could change the whole multiverse. Now she basically is a living god who could change the world just by being sad. The most famous moment for this was in House of M number 7. Wanda had a bad day and decided that she was tired of mutants. She said 3 words, "No more mutants." That was it. That tiny sentence went across the entire multiverse and changed the DNA of almost every mutant alive. She stripped millions of people of their powers in a second. But that's not even the craziest thing she did, because she topped that in Darkhold Omega number 1 when she fought Chthon. And here's what I find super interesting. Instead of just hitting him with a magic blast, she actually ate him. She absorbed the god in his evil book into her own soul so she could never bother anyone again. That officially made her the boss of the most powerful magic in existence. You could order reality all you want, but once chaos ensues, it's game over. Well, that's it for this one. If you liked the video, hit that like button. Subscribe for more and ring the bell so you never miss a drop. Craving more stories from comics, movies, and beyond? Check out this video right here. Cheers and see you in the next one.